are back.
Oh yeah, we are. We're here.
We're here.
Fucking hell.
We're live.
What is this? We have our fun little wine.
Yeah.
What is this?
And we have wine this time.
So talk to me about this wine real quick, because you're my wine goddess as
so
well.
this wine specifically, I don't know anything about.
This is your first.
I picked it solely off the label because it is spooky season.
Oh yeah.
And Edgar Allan Poe is on the label, so it just only felt right.
It is kind of fun. Like, I didn't even do that intentionally.
Yeah.
It's like, here's what's in the pantry.
But it is a Syrah, so
What can
cheers.
But I don't know
Cheers
what to expect to that. What does that mean to me?
Well, it's from Washington, so I'm really bad with pronouncing like any type of wine region.
Woo. Woo.
It's
a little spicy.
Yeah, so this is from the Guadalupe Slope, Washington.
Okay.
Again, I'm butchering that, and I do have somewhat of an education in wine, so I should know that, but
that's okay.
Anyway, I digress. So it is a Syrah. It is going to be, a bolder red. Quite a bit of fruit in there, but yeah, like I think depending on where it's grown, like, a Shiraz from Australia, which is also a Syrah, the same grape, is going to be way different than, what's in South Africa to what's in Washington. So
I tend to like Washington. I don't know why I'm a Washington wine fan, but I even, like there's a Revelry wine. Have you heard of them?
Mm-hmm.
And I like a couple of their reds. There's a Faust wine. Have you heard of them?
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to buy the bottle just because it was Faust.
Oh.
Like, Faust is one of my favorite stories.
Oh, I don't think I know.
You don't know the story of Faust?
No.
What?
Hold on, I'm gonna
look it up. Oh my gosh.
Like, okay, so from a German legend, based on the historical Johann Georg Faust. Okay. He was highly successful yet dissatisfied with his life, which leads him to make a pact with the devil at a crossroads, exchanging his soul for unlimited knowledge and worldly pleasures. Oh.
Uh-huh.
Oh, so that's one of my favorite pieces. Good for spooky season too.
One of my favorite pieces of literature ever.
Oh, interesting.
And I'm a huge Poe fan too, so it's like...
Yeah.
I know.
So, like, when I was in high school, we had a whole...
that's spicy.
Whatever, like, not curriculum, I don't know, lesson on Edgar Allan Poe.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like just now, like, the schools would be so against it, at least maybe here. I don't know, maybe not the schools that my kid goes to, because they're not as crazy as the ones out here in Kansas.
Everybody here's got them.
But, like, I just remember, I think it was my freshman year, just being fascinated. Like, The Raven, holy cow, like, it's just so dark. And I think maybe that's when my, like, I don't know, spooky obsession started.
Well,
or dark obsession.
And then also, the Edgar Allan Poe, this is a very controversial comment, so watch out, is credited with the first sort of murder mystery that the Sherlock Holmes idea was based on. Mm-hmm. So Conan Arthur Doyle, right, who wrote that, got it from Poe.
Interesting.
And so I'll have to send you the title of that very first book. Like, I've read it.
Yeah.
I took the Poe class in college as non-traditional students in my early 30s and had a little bit of a crush on my professor.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he was so cool.
Did you get an A?
I did. I did get an A.
But not the easy way?
Not the easy way. I know, right? I probably could have, but I was behaved. So it was a Melville-Poe combo class. So we started with Poe, and then we ended with Melville. And the only Melville I'd ever read was Moby Dick.
Okay.
And I hate that book.
Yeah.
It's for me, it was gut-wrenching to go through. But Melville is a very talented author. He was just made famous for Moby Dick, which is, in my opinion, not his best. But when you take the two and you take Melville and Poe and you look at them together, it's a very interesting combo.
Yeah.
Because of the topics and the overlap of human suffering and pain and heartbreak, and it's pretty fascinating. So that's where I fell in love with Poe, and I like the I don't know if you saw my one of my pictures here. What is it? I pulled it up for this. I meant to send it to you and I totally didn't, but this makes me laugh every single time. So here's this picture.
And wait, if you're getting walled into a cellar, I feel bad for you, son. I gotta
yeah, read it. It's like, if you're getting walled into a cellar, I feel bad for you, son. I got 99 problems, but Amontillado ain't one. And that's the one where he's like,
yes,
put in the wall, right?
Yeah.
So that when I was in that Poe class, James, who's what was his last name? We're Facebook friends. He's a pretty cool dude. He's still writing poetry and stuff, and he's fucking brilliant. But he did his class presentation for Poe, and that was the handout that he gave us.
I love it.
And I was like, you were the coolest dude in the room right now. So anyway, I digress. But there's awesome. a little intro.
Yeah.
Little story. Okay, so what do
All
we...
right. So do you want to do cards first?
Yeah, let's do cards. Right, let's keep it moving.
Yeah. Oh, what's your favorite chick flick?
I hate the word chick flick though, right?
As if men don't enjoy them too.
Agreed. My favorite chick flick. There's so many. You know what I watch over and over and over again and absolutely love is 16 Candles.
Mm.
Have you ever seen it?
Mm-hmm.
I love Jake Ryan, and I love the whole and I don't know if that's really a chick flick, but everything ends well, essentially, which is my definition of that. What's yours?
Oh gosh. Well, this goes back to childhood. But Beaches with Bette Midler.
Oh God, I cry every fucking time I see that movie.
Oh, that was one of my favorites when I was little. My sister and I would watch that on repeat.
Oh, Bette Midler's amazing.
I know. I love her. But also, I don't know, Father of the Bride. I don't know. I go back to the childhood chick flicks that I used to watch. But as an adult watching them, I'm like, oh, this is way different than just being a fun movie that I enjoyed when I was little.
Father of the Bride I love, but I can pick apart like nobody's business. I'm 22. No. Phil in Rome. No.
No, yeah. No, all of that. But Steve Martin, Martin Short.
Amazing.
Yeah. I mean, Only Murders in the Building.
Oh, come on.
Best show.
Oh, because of you, I'm obsessed. Yes. And I'm I binged watched that, and I fucking now have to wait until the next season comes out. Yeah. I will give you that.
Yeah.
Yep. And have you ever seen Bette Midler live?
No.
Oh, I saw her in Vegas. Oh my God, I saw her in Vegas. I went with my stupid ex-husband, and he had no appreciation for the divine Miss M, and she was phenomenal as always.
So up until my mom moved from my childhood home, she had a framed picture that I drew with crayon of Bette Midler hanging in our kitchen.
Oh, my heart. I love her.
Yeah.
I love her. I know that a lot of the new generation idolizes the Gagas and the Nicki Minaj's and all that, but Bette Midler was our mother's, Nicki Minaj. She was so scandalous and so talented and so,
she's incredible. She still is.
She still is. She was breaking molds, on the regular.
Yeah.
And doing it on her terms, which I thought was pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
So. Okay.
Agreed.
Oh, I have to...
Your turn.
I have to ask you.
Ooh, my Nespresso was delivered.
Hey, mine's getting delivered today too. What did you order?
I'm usually pretty basic. I order the same, none of the flavors. Always the 7-ounce pours. I need a black cup of coffee.
Straight up. I'm going to give you an option because the first card I drew I thought was stupid.
Okay.
The first one I drew is, which old boyfriend would you love to spend 24 hours with? Before you answer that. The second question I drew, if you could start your life over, what would you do differently? So I'm going to let you choose. Which one do you want? Well, this one's a little heavier.
Yeah, that one's way heavier.
The second one's heavier.
Okay. I'll do the second one. I'll do the heavy one. Okay. Because I wouldn't want to spend any time with any of my ex-boyfriends.
Well, there's a reason they're old.
Yeah, and I chose very poorly.
Me too. We all did. We didn't know what to choose.
Yeah, not that they were bad people or anything, but just
they weren't my people.
Mm-hmm. No. So which I guess kind of goes into the what could you do differently if you could start your life over? Yeah. would try from the beginning so hard to not care about what people thought of me and try to fit in. Especially as a kid, I tried so hard to just like fit in and not be made fun of, which as a kid, that's really hard. Of course, you never want to be made fun of. And, you know, it's all relative of being like the worst day of your life and whatever. But there were so many times I would catch myself, even all the way through college. And even now I struggle with it because it's like I want to be liked by people.
Yeah.
I want to fit in. I don't want to be made fun of. But in reality, it's like, it doesn't matter. Just be you.
Great.
So, yeah, I would, ingrain that into my brain. Like, be you. Like, be your authentic self. Even if you're a big fucking weirdo, be the big fucking weirdo and be the best at it.
I think we are opening up to doing that more. Like, don't you see that in your girls?
Mm-hmm.
And not just because you're facilitating that, but I feel like for as much as I complain about societal expectations, there are some good points, right? Where I feel like I've shared the story with my little cousin. I'm just so enamored of her because she has the ability in her 20s to be her authentic self. Yeah. And do it without giving any fucks.
Yeah. And I mean, and she's just enough younger than us too. She didn't have necessarily the gender stereotypes that we grew up with.
Very true.
Too. Whereas like my kids don't grow up with that. Like my 7-year-old is obsessed with Spider-Man. Was Spider-Man for Halloween 2 years in a row. Like has all the Spider-Man toys. Like she wanted the Spider-Man bedspread, which I drew the line at that. Not because like I just don't like character bedspreads. Like no, thank you. But
well, you can't decorate around them.
Yeah,
it can't be pretty.
And I'm like, you might be over it in a while. Like she loves like to play fight and do like what is stereotypically known as like boy like play, and it's just like she is who she is, but she's also a little girly girl too, and that's like okay. She can be both. And so like my grandparents would have never thought about getting me any type of like superhero toys or anything for my birthday, even if I was like, yeah, that's what I wanted. Like they would respect it to a certain degree, but it's like, oh, but you know, she's a little girl. She doesn't want boy toys. Right. Like,
is that really what you want? Yeah. That would have been the conversation.
Yeah. So that's what I would go back and change.
I love everything about that. That makes me happy. Okay. Yeah. Now we're going on to spooky stuff.
Yeah. So this episode, we are doing a deep dive, maybe not a deep dive, a shallow dive into the Salem Witch Trials. So, if you don't know what the Salem Witch Trials are, you're probably in some sort of religious cult, so you need to run anyway.
You should not be listening to this podcast.
Yeah. But, yeah, so we're not going to go back into the full history of, like, how it started. You should already know that. And if you don't, then Google it. But...
educate yourself.
Yes, educate yourself. Because what we are going to focus on are some of the women that were accused during this time and their statuses. So the whole thing started on March 1st, 1692. I can do like a little brief. A brief.
I need that.
Yeah. So there were actually over 200 people that were accused of being witches during this time. Mm-hmm. So like in the amount, like, I guess in the course of a year. And 20 were executed and 7 died in prison while awaiting trial, either from torture, malnourishment, maltreatment, disease, or all of the above. Okay. And 14 of the people that were executed were women. So, and so obviously we're not going to dive into all the 200 people that were accused, but the majority of them were women. Okay. But there are some men in there. So,
which is interesting because what do you call, like, it's not a witch if you're a man, it's a warlock, right?
I don't know.
Is that right?
No, I mean, so I guess they weren't, I guess maybe this is where there is confusion, maybe not confusion, but where I guess the nuance of it gets lost. So these people were being accused of bewitching others. Yeah. Or just witchcraft in general. So,
which... I know you're getting to this, but it's fascinating to me because really, if you bewitched and you claim to be bewitched, isn't that just because you don't want to accept accountability for your own actions?
Yeah.
like most of the time.
Yeah. No, like
I'm like bewitched.
Yeah.
She bewitched me.
She's bewitched. So
it's not my fault.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so it started with two young girls, ages 9 and 11, mind you. So think about this. During, like, in 1692, a 9-year-old and an 11-year-old started having convulsions, screaming outbursts, and, just acting insane. And so the local doctor came and examined them and obviously found nothing physically wrong with them. So the only logical answer is they're being bewitched.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because he probably wasn't talented enough to figure out what was really wrong.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So this is a man.
And he can't admit that he doesn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So they were, okay, well, who's bewitching you, little girl? And so they're 9 and 11. What are they going to say? They're going to say the first person that either comes to mind or that they see.
They just saw on the street.
Pretty much. So they accused their maid or their slave, Tituba. So she was she's a Caribbean slave who, I don't know if she was considered a slave in the Puritan.
Servant.
Yes. Yeah. We'll say servant.
Okay.
And, so she's from the Caribbean. So, they have, obviously they're not from a Christian background. Like, I'm sure she did practice voodoo and, have all of the,
you've got a Creole influence, I think, right?
Yeah. So, so she actually confessed, saying, like, she did make a deal with the devil. And I'm sure she confessed after a bunch of torture and, whatever else.
Like, we're going to send you back to where we're going to kill you or whatever.
Yeah, pretty much.
I'd probably confess to anything at that point, too.
Yeah.
Really sure.
But she was not killed. She was sold into slavery. So it's just
she was valuable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That would be my guess.
Okay.
That actually makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But, so it's like, okay, to her, it's like, well, what's the fucking difference? Like, she's not free with the Paris family, so might as well make money off of her. So then, Sarah Good was accused. So she was actually born into a pretty well-to-do family, but her father died, and with the shitty laws back then, only left a fraction of his land to her and her sisters, while her brothers and her mother's new husband, tried to deny them of as much as they could. So she did get, a small fraction, but she should have gotten more. But her mother's new husband, which essentially acquired that new land, tried to make sure that the daughters didn't get anything. And so because of essentially her new status, she couldn't marry at that level anymore, from what I understood. So she married an indentured servant who was a drunk and ended up dying and left her in more debt, which caused her to lose the little land that she did have. Oh. And then she married again. And so the couple was so impoverished and homeless at this point, which left her begging door to door. Oh. So basically, the townspeople were not fond of her. They grew pretty annoyed with her begging, and she was somebody who challenged the Puritan values. Mm-hmm. And the townspeople didn't find her grateful enough when they did help her or give her some food.
There's a grateful scale.
Yeah, they thought that she was a pretty harsh woman. So she was easily accused of being a witch because they're like, yeah, that she's fucking annoying. Let's get
she's imprison her.
Yes, but she was pregnant while when she was accused, and she ended up having the baby in prison while she was awaiting trial, which is super sad in and of itself. And the baby died in prison, so the baby was jailed with her and ended up dying in prison. And get this, it gets even shittier. Her 4-year-old daughter was accused of being a witch
because she was her daughter.
Because why not? Oh yeah, not because no. It was separate. It was a separate thing. A separate thing. Yeah, and so she was jailed, and she was jailed alone in her own little cell, chained to the wall, and was there for a little less than a year. and then was finally released. But after that, obviously, she was not the same. Like, she was 4
be?
years old. And so after that, like, she was so, like, I mean, fucked up from that experience. Like, her father couldn't even really take care of her anymore, like, and had to pay for basically an insane asylum. Like, they didn't have that back then, but like a caretaker for her because, you know, of the shitty hand that she was dealt and, you know, the shitty people of the town.
She wasn't grateful.
Yes. Okay.
Like
another woman.
I need a drink of wine.
Yes.
Jesus.
Sarah Osborne. She was a widow, and after her husband's death, she took in an Irish immigrant as a farmhand, whom she would later marry.
Okay.
And then by claiming her deceased husband's estate for herself instead of her children, she challenged the standard practice at the time of inheritance. So, and which, I mean, you're going to get like a woman, a female landowner. What is that?
So basically,
like, you're not giving it to your sons, and her sons were probably like super young at the time anyway.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, like, I can fucking do this. I can be successful. So
because she didn't do what they wanted, they thought her behavior was so erratic, the only explanation would be an outside force influencing her.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
And so, and actually, well, okay, reading here, it looked like there was a legal battle with her children. So it looks like her children were, and I'm guessing her sons, let's be honest, like, you know, women had no rights back then.
No.
They were in a legal battle for the land, like as if they should have been the rightful heirs.
Okay.
Which, I mean, you know, when she died, it should go to them anyway.
Right.
But apparently they wanted it then. So, so she was accused of witchcraft during this time. And she was executed. And that ended the legal battle with her children. So they ended up getting what they wanted anyway.
So sure.
So yeah, remember that. And then Bridget Bishop, she was the first hanged in all of this. And she was actually accused of bewitching her second husband to death. But before all the Salem Witch Trials started in 1692, years prior, she was accused of bewitching her second husband to death. But it was acquitted due to lack of evidence. I don't know what evidence you can have, but she was a successful woman because she ran 2 taverns alongside her third husband, and she was always seen by friends, family, and guests as wearing exotic clothes and bright colors, which is funny. Which were both far from the standard of clothes associated. Well, okay, here, let me reread this.
Well, Puritans had to be covered, right?
Yes, they had to be covered. They had to be very, like, neutral with their clothing.
Yeah, and nothing could show.
Yes.
So it was, like, very pilgrim-y, like...
Yes, yeah, like, exactly. So, yeah, the fact that she was wearing bright colors and exotic clothes for the time.
Exotic was probably, like a round neck.
Yeah.
That showed, like, her neck.
So, so it was far from the standard. And, that was very much associated with the devil at that time.
Okay.
So, yeah, they were like, yeah, get this whore out of here. So they tried her first, and she was the first to be hanged.
Well, they were afraid other women would follow.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If she can do it, why can't I? You know, you can't let one have it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, another woman... Rebecca Nurse, she was a very well-respected woman in the community, had several children and grandchildren, and she was one of the oldest women accused and eventually executed. She had 39 prominent people in the community that actually signed a petition on her behalf and just saying, like, no, like, this woman cannot be a witch, like, this is ridiculous, like, she's, you know, really pious and... you know, really involved in the church. Like, she's a very good woman. Like, this is ridiculous. So she was actually acquitted from her.
Because, power speaks.
Yes.
Right?
But at this time, when she was found not guilty, the girls, which there were multiple at this time, started falling on the ground and screaming and doing convulsions and everything. And so the court's like, maybe we need to reconsider this. And so basically turned it all around and is like, yeah, no, she's fucking guilty. Hang her.
So they hung her.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but 20 years later, after the fact, she was exonerated.
Of course. Dead.
Yeah.
She's
dead.
Dead.
But,
yeah.
you know.
I'm sure she's grateful.
Yes. Then another one, Sarah Wilds. She married a widower. She had a widower with 8 children from a previous marriage in which the wife's siblings did not like her at all. So her husband's old in-laws, previous in-laws, did not like the new wife at all. She was known in town as being a nonconformist. So I think we're starting to see a theme here. A nonconformist Puritan. And she was considered glamorous and forward for a woman at the time. And she had prior charges with the court as well. One being fornication before marriage, in which she was sentenced to be whipped.
Oh.
Yeah, just because she was indulging in every human nature, like, or a very human nature, whatever.
In Europe, you had to actually have, like, permission to have sex from the royal family, right?
That's fucked. Whatever.
Like...
So the king could have first dibs, basically?
I think I'm horny. Can I get it on with my man, please?
Population control. And then she was charged another time for wearing or possibly wearing, I don't know if it wasn't clear, a silk scarf.
Oh.
So scandalous.
Yeah, it is.
So with those prior charges and the fact that she was a nonconformist Puritan, made her a very easy target. And then, so we have 3 more that I want to go over real quick. Martha Corey, she had a very scandalous past. She had a mixed race son and then got married to a very wealthy farmer, Giles Corey, who was actually during this trial was also accused of witchcraft. And so Martha, she was known for her dedication to the church, but never showed support for the witch trials at all from the beginning. And she was very publicly outspoken about this and saying that the young accusers were liars. So imagine that.
Well, they have to protect you've
outspoken
killed people and you've done all this. You can't have,
talk
about that.
So, yes, because of how outspoken she was, the girls, magically found her guilty of witchcraft. Or like she was bewitching them. Did
the girls continue to have like these fits, like they were having before the
Pretty
doctor?
Pretty much, yeah.
The doctor.
Yeah, and then like so there were some like neighbors that started joining in too. Like some people I feel like use this as like an excuse to get rid of like an unruly neighbor, or like if there were land disputes, like things would pop up, or if like a child died in infancy, which was very common back then because it was the 1600s.
Yeah, come on.
Like, the child must have been bewitched to death. Or like people use that as an excuse if anybody died in their family and they couldn't really determine the cause. It was like, they were bewitched to death. Who bewitched them?
So the original girls, the accusers could have been mentally ill or just misbehaving.
Yeah.
And all of that came from...
Well, because also during this time, like the Puritans, especially when it came to children, they were definitely not encouraged. So I don't know if they weren't allowed, but they were not allowed to like be children. They were supposed to do their chores and then read the Bible. And they are children. Could you imagine kids doing that today? No.
That wouldn't fly today.
Yeah. But there's also another theory that during this time, there could have been a fungus on like the rye or the barley or, one of the crops that they grew that was very common back then, that actually can cause very similar symptoms to what they had. But they obviously didn't have the technology or the wherewithal to know that there was a fungus on what they were doing. But then, so like it could have started with just those 2 girls and then other girls like joining in. But yeah, no, there's a theory like, hey, it could have been this, like a very scientific reason why they were, like if they were having these convulsions and, unexplained things happening, like that is a reaction to this type of fungus. Or they were just kids and basically causing mass hysteria.
Just kids being kids, and it got blown out of proportion.
Yeah, and then they had to keep going along with it because then they would have been fucking killed.
Or kids that are produced with bad parents.
Yeah, that too. I mean, yeah, all of these people that were accusing these very innocent people of witchcraft were horrible people.
Who all had the same common denominator of nonconformists.
Yes.
Mostly women.
A lot of widows.
Yeah.
Or poor.
Poor.
Yep.
Interesting.
So.
Or wanting to change some of the molds, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. Which I guess goes under nonconformist, but wow.
Yes.
Okay. What else you got?
So, okay. So I had two more. There's one Anne I don't know how to say her last name. Puditer.
Sorry, Anne.
Okay. So she was a very wealthy widow and was also the local nurse and midwife. And which also made her
interesting
a very easy target. So essentially a single woman who was very wealthy and also helped the local people. But with that, had these potions and concoctions that she used either to help ease pain or, cure, funguses or, whatever that people had. Yeah. And so that made her an easy target. And, somebody said that she was bewitching them. They go and investigate. It's like, well, she has all of these potions. It must be true. And it's like, motherfucker, she just cured you from your, foot fungus last week.
From that itch on your ball sack.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
And then who was the last one?
Oh, the last one. No, the last. We'll end with that one.
Okay.
But basically, the overall theme, all of these women that were accused, either they were nonconformist or they were outspoken, or they were single, widows.
Yeah. Being their authentic self.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit here.
Yeah.
Right. Just sort of doing their thing and not caring what others thought.
Yeah. So, the whole thing is super fascinating. And also, so the thing is each person accused had to enter in a plea. Okay. Obviously, I think Tituba might have been the only one that entered in a guilty plea.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm sure there were more, but to get that guilty plea, they were tortured and beaten and subjected to all these horrible things. So if they were charged as guilty, then their land, all of their possessions were taken from them. So it was also...
It's motive.
Yeah.
Business.
Yes.
Wealth and social class are always in those conversations. Mm-hmm. I don't even care if we're talking about them today. The power is always in the conversation.
Yes. No, that's all this was. And
wow.
It caused mass hysteria. But there's one person, so remember Martha Corey, who had a scandalous past, she had a mixed race son and then married a very wealthy landowner, farmer.
Which I'm sure that pissed the Puritans off.
Yeah. Giles Corey. So he was also accused, but he never entered a plea. He refused. And so he was not hanged, he was executed, but by part of his torture to get a plea from him was by stacking stones on him. So he was essentially crushed to death.
Yeah.
But he never entered a plea, so they couldn't take his land legally. So his heirs, his kids, were able to actually inherit the land.
Good for him.
Yeah. Whereas all these other people that did have land, it was taken from them, it was taken from their kids, all of that. And so left them homeless. And
socially shamed.
Yeah.
You would have to then really leave that part of the country, which the rest of the country hadn't been developed.
Yeah.
That's going to be way before
we
have the entire United States, right? Yeah. That's just East Coast colony stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. Listen to that podcast I sent you yesterday. I sent it, what was it called? Dark History?
Mm-hmm.
So I apologize if she ever listens to this. Her voice annoys the shit out of me. But the stories that she told were pretty insane. And then she obviously is, researching and backing that up. And she's got reference or resources to do that. And she talked about how they would make a decision on, and she really focused pre-Salem. So she did the very first witch hunt, and she's talking about Spain and the whole European.
Dang, yeah, she went way back.
And so some of the criteria to decide if somebody was a witch. This is kind of during King James, like the Bible guy.
Mm-hmm.
So if you...
The Bible guy?
Yeah. If you weighed more than the Bible or less than the Bible, you were a witch. Was one of the criteria.
So you had to weigh the exact amount
of the Bible. Or...
like,
it's bullshit.
Like, so a pound? Like, what?
I know, right? So then the other one was if you bled. So anybody on their period would be considered a witch.
Okay, so women.
Women.
So basically they're just trying to wipe out the human race.
And that was her point, was that it was predominantly women. There were a few men in there, kind of like Salem. But this had really died down in Europe before it got to Puritan country.
Well, in Europe, they would burn the people at the stake.
Yeah, they had a whole ritual situation, right? That's how you rid the body of the evil.
Yeah.
And so it was definitely, what else did she have in there? I mean, I was listening to it and trying to do a couple other things. And there were a couple of times I just stopped and be like, okay, wait a minute, what did she just say? And rewind it, because it was so mind-blowing. But the way that they came out, it was women. It was, they believed that women, this was my favorite. And I'm literally laughing out loud at myself yesterday listening to this. Witches were obsessed with penises. And if you were a woman that liked penis a lot, the idea was that you would cut the man's penis off and keep it for your own pleasure.
I mean, if that's all you really need, right? Yeah.
So they, if a man cheated on his wife, his reasoning was that the person he cheated with had vexed him because witches were also known to be, as you explained, nonconformist, but they were very confident in their sexuality. So they just used it as an
out.
Yeah.
So... I mean, that's where... my gosh, it's insane.
You have to listen to the podcast. It's crazy.
It's insane.
Yeah.
That makes me so mad.
If you can get over her voice, like what she talks
about... victim blaming. It's it starts from like the beginning. It's victim blaming.
Well, I think it was very early AD. I don't think she was BC. She might have been. But some of this was like 1600... 1500. I mean, she was deep into history with some of this, and I thought, God, your team is amazing to have found these archives.
Yeah, no kidding.
But the whole I
mean, that could be just a whole podcast in and of itself.
Yeah, it was that good. But it blew my mind because we do take for granted some of the right now, women, we still don't have what we need. But can you imagine? Like, I could consider myself a pretty a sexual being. I'd have been. Have been hung or burned or whatever.
Yeah, no, we all fucking would have been hung. Women weren't allowed to have emotions, feelings, thoughts.
No.
Heaven forbid thoughts.
Oh my God, anything that was out of the construct, right? And the irony that there are actually pamphlets and how to decide if this is a witch. So she talks about that in the podcast, and they were mass distributed, right? You see that in movies where they're in a time of where the main form of communication was pamphlets, right? Yeah. So these pamphlets are delivered and dispersed, and here's how you can tell if she's a witch. And it gives these men, it was only dispersed to men, right? Here's your criteria.
Because they didn't teach women how to read.
Right. And then King James gets involved, because he's promoting his own self, his own book, his own version of...
his own book.
Yeah, he's got his own thing going on. It's fascinating as shit. So if anybody wants to listen to it, it's what is her name? Dark History. And she does some other ones. I started listening to a pirate one. I was like, well, this is fascinating.
Ooh.
Yeah. But what was it? I sent it to you
Johnny
yesterday.
Depp action?
Yeah, well, she says she's never seen Pirates of the Caribbean, but it's all bit here. Dark History, the witches are coming, hide your broom, hide your goats. She does make it slightly comical, but when you start to think about the context of it, how it is still, to this day, all of the, in my opinion, the issues that are out there around race and gender still go back to power.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
It's
100%. And that's the thing, so that if you do a deep dive into the Salem Witch Trials, which I'm sure, all through history, there's the common theme, but they would constantly change the rules, too.
Yeah, you couldn't follow the plan.
Yeah. They would say, well, you're not a witch if you can recite the Lord's Prayer from start to finish. Many people were able to do that. And they're like, no, you're a fucking witch.
Yeah.
Hanger.
Yeah.
It's just so ridiculous. Or, they would strip them down to see if they had any marking, like witch markings or markings of the devil. And it could just be a fucking birthmark or a mole. Like,
she talked about that. Like,
yeah.
the mole thing. Or like, so if you had it removed, if you were scared because you had a mole and you went to somebody to have it removed, then you were automatically found guilty because you did something to your body. But you were kind of at Schitt's Creek anyway if you had the mole, right?
Yeah.
Or the birthmark. So there was a no win-win there.
But also with that, so like in this situation where it was clearly a mass hysteria.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure there were plenty of people who were like, okay, we got to get ahead of this. Like, we need to accuse someone of being a witch so they don't think that, so before someone accuses us of being a witch.
Well, but think about mass hysteria over history. That usually produces somebody who rises to the top who wants more control.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very... Even think about our pandemic that just happened.
Yeah.
You can pull shards of that out however you want to, but...
No, it's really interesting, like, reading into that and just how people would go along with it and, you know, constant changing of rules. Or like, oh, no, we believe this, but, oh, no, now one of our own is thinking that or doing that. Like, oh, well, no, okay, so that's okay, but this still isn't okay for this person over here. Like, it is very parallel with what we are currently dealing with in our political climate, because that's what that was. It was politics
all the way.
And I mean, with obviously a ton of religion backing it, but how is that any different than what we're going through today in using, you know, we're supposed to have a separation between church and state, but not with what we're going through right now.
Well, even before Trump was elected, what was that big scandal where he said just grab her, grab him in the pussy? And the reporter who was with him lost his job.
Yeah.
And we still elected that guy to run our country.
Yeah.
It was fascinating. I mean, like, the popular vote didn't. But,
no, right.
But the politicians behind the electoral vote were the ones who actually elected Trump into office. So, no, you're right. That is the one consistent thing through human, like, that's in human behavior throughout time, right? You can go back to history and you can pinpoint anything, and we can have the same conversation about, how do I take control? I mean, that's how the Bible was created, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that was a book that was really pre-picked and thought out before it was published around a new religion. So, so what did they? I think they did admit they were wrong, right? At some point. So did they come out and say we screwed up or no?
So the judge or the court from Boston ended up having to intervene.
Okay.
And basically shut it all down.
So this is some craziness.
Yeah, because it was clearly getting out of hand. Like, there were, like, by the time they came in, they had accused over 200 people. So there were hundreds of people just sitting in jails all over, not just Salem, like all over that area.
That New England area.
Yeah. So like the whole, So
like, I feel like later though.
But like nothing happened to the girls that essentially started all of this. Like nothing happened to like the judges or anything. But there is like a little ghost story to kind of go along with it.
Okay.
One of the men that was accused and eventually executed, I think it was a man, maybe it was a woman. Either way, somebody that was accused and eventually executed, like right before they were executed, they cursed the sheriff or who, like somebody that was in charge, and like, I curse you, and basically blah blah blah, whatever. And that guy ended up dying of a heart attack, and every sheriff after that, like to present day, has either died or has had to resign from the position because of heart problems.
No.
Yes.
Oh, that's great.
Yes.
I kind of love that. It's mean,
right?
I know, because these other guys don't have anything to do with it.
Right.
But
still, it's like, you can't, I mean, if you are from that area and you become sheriff, like, and it's happened to everyone before you, it's like, that story.
Oh my God.
I think they should just get rid of the position if that were me. But, I'm a very level-headed woman and
nonconformist.
with ideas. So they're not going to.
And today in very scandalous clothing.
Yes.
So did you...
With unshaven legs.
It's so hot and so nonconformist. What about... So you did your research for this. I was supposed to do a little research and I didn't. That's just sort of how I roll. But you know what? That's how I got my master's degree.
Right.
I never did homework. So, and it's always works out for me. But how did you have a book? What do you have suggestions for our listeners? You have like places they can go check shit out. Like I know we want to go to the museum at some point.
Yeah.
Did you have books or did you just do a deep dive on the Goog?
I mean, I did a deep dive on the Google space. But I also listen to a ton of like ghost podcasts that always like cover stuff like this. And then I also watch the History Channel.
That History Channel I'm so addicted to that.
I mean, and just going to like the Salem, Massachusetts like history website, which we can link in the notes. But I mean, the two podcasts that I love the most that and the one that I listened to that did a really good job, I feel like, and making it entertaining too, covering the Salem Witch Trials, is Morbid.
Morbid?
Yeah.
Oh. Well, tell me a little bit about that. And then we'll wrap this up.
I mean, they cover everything from like haunted hotels to Salem Witch Trials to just like some really like crazy, scary stories. Not like all ghostly stuff. Like it could be like, I don't know, like axe murder stuff. But I usually don't listen to those because I tend to stick more with the ghosts.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, they actually live in Massachusetts too. So that's what made it super interesting to me, hearing their Salem Witch Trial. Excuse me.
The wine's kicked in.
Yeah, the wine's kicking in. But yeah, no, I don't,
Okay.
I mean, there could literally be an entire podcast with seasons upon seasons of just the Salem Witch Trials. And then if you add in like other witches.
The European stuff really got me. Like, listen to that when you get a chance. Listen to that Dark History.
Yeah.
The European witch trials, and it's always fascinating to me because we are still behind other countries in so many ways. But because think about it, like they had their witch trials first. We did them.
Yeah.
They ended slavery first.
Yeah.
We begrudgingly followed.
Yeah.
Didn't
years
really want
later.
to. Yeah. Even now in like my professional world with marketing and stuff, I'll look to the European countries for fresh ideas because they tend to be very cutting edge. Yeah. And
that's so smart.
Yeah. And then when you look at like fashion, because you and I are we love fashion, but we have very different styles. Most of the time that's going to come from Europe and then start on the coast and move inward, right?
Yeah, we're the last to know.
Yeah. So we're even
still
on
the
trend.
dummies that are doing like the mall bangs.
Yeah. When Europe's got some super cool thing going on. And you can even put it in context of like, in advertising, like when you're in different countries, what your privacy levels are completely different than over here. So it's so funny when we talk about all these different hot topics, gun laws, abortion, we can pick any one of those.
Yeah.
And we tend to follow. We don't tend to lead, which is interesting to me. So
yeah, but we only tend to follow when like it benefits the current people in power.
True story. Yes, I would agree with that.
So,
we will be avant-garde when it benefits the people in power. So I guess there's a flip to it.
Yeah.
But
no, I agree with that 100%. And
I didn't realize that the witch trials had ended in other parts of the world before they even began here in America. I think that was, kind of getting back to the topic at hand. That was interesting to me. Was that didn't even come about. And I mean, there's a substantial amount of time that passes when Europe like dies down and goes, all right, this is really ludicrous. We're not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
And the Puritans are like, nope.
But if you think about it, they were, still considered settlers at that time. Like they were trying to colonize that area.
True.
And so I'm sure that they had been there for 100 years or so, maybe.
But what was that?
But no matter what, a significant amount of time. So by the time Europe ended all their witch trials and accusations and whatnot, like the people that had come over to America, it's not like they're getting those pamphlets handed out to them.
They're not on the internet.
Yeah, by the time they found out, like, oh nope, Europe's done with that. Yeah, cool, we're done too. Hey guys, no more witches.
It's over. Yeah, it's over.
Witches aren't a thing, by the way.
Yeah.
Sorry about that thing. Back in 1692. Whoops.
Oh my God, that's so funny. Well, but when they colonized, weren't there stories around like, what was that colony that just vanished that nobody got?
Roanoke.
Yeah. So is that close to Salem, I think?
I assume so. Or maybe that's Virginia. I don't know.
I'm horrible at geography.
Yeah.
But I think that
Just
the Puritans had so many
it's
of
like
those.
they're all, it's all one group.
It is all one group.
It's East Coast.
It's East Coast. That whole that whole group of Puritans though, like they had a lot of shit go down.
Yeah.
So I guess they'd be very
like
antsy.
Not giving them the benefit of the doubt by any means because they were all shitty people. But they're in this new world trying to colonize, trying to create a society as they know it.
True.
But they were still like in how they did it, obviously, like, I mean, America has a very dark history. Like, they took that land from the Native Americans and, so they were still probably under threat and fear of being attacked because of this land that they stole. And maybe it might not have been them, but it was definitely, like, family members that had come before them.
Right.
Or people that had come before them. So they were under the stress of that. I'm sure under the stress of constant death because it was the 1600s.
Yeah.
And,
well, death was like happened every day.
And they were still ruled by England. And I think at that time, like, there was something with revoking their colonization too. So there's a lot of shit going on. There was a lot of shit going on that plus telling your kids like, hey, you can't have fun, you have to read the Bible. Like, if I was a kid during that time, I'd be like, fuck this. Let's accuse some people of being witches.
So, I'm sitting here.
Let's have some entertainment here.
Right? Absolutely. Yeah. I'm sitting here thinking, you're reading my mind. So, I'm doing that session with Stephanie Barton, my medium on, or her too, our medium, on past lives. Wouldn't that be hysterical if I was like...
If you were a witch?
Yeah. Wouldn't that be funny? Like, I can't wait.
Wait, when are you doing it? Because maybe we can do that as a Halloween, like, quickie.
I don't know. Like, I'm waiting for her because we had to reschedule. Because there's the point, again, I'm the whole, like, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about this on the ghosting podcast on energy and how it transforms and stuff. But it's like, I don't know if I believe in past lives, but I don't know if I disbelieve, right? Because you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
But if we're looking at it from a scientific standpoint, I'm kind of on board. But I like, do you want to know what you did in past lives? Like, was I heinous? Was I the little girl who said she was a witch?
But, like, okay, so typically I feel like on past lives, it's not like the whole thing. It's just,
We'll find out.
I don't know. I mean, I have a kind of a weird past life story if you want to hear it.
Yeah, bring it.
It's with, about my creepy kid.
Really?
Yeah. So my oldest, when she was about 3 or 4, she would always talk about how she missed her old family.
No, I did not know this.
Mm-hmm.
No. Okay.
And I'm like, okay, like
whatever.
Yeah, just like pass off. Like, that's weird. But she kept bringing it up. She's like, I've missed my old mommy and daddy. And I'm like, well, sweetie, no, like, I've been your only mommy and daddy's been your only daddy. And she's like, no, my other mommy and daddy.
Oh my God.
And she was like pretty insistent. So I'm just like, okay, tell me more. Like, and I said, it's okay to miss them. Like, we can always, you can love them, you can miss them, but like, tell me more. Cause like, I didn't know them.
You're such a good mom. Oh my God. I'd have been freaked out. Were you freaked out inside?
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
I was like, oh my God. And so I immediately called like my husband and told him about all of this. But she's like, well, we lived in a really small house in the woods. And so she started going into detail. A really small house in the woods. There wasn't a floor. And she's like, and my dad wore really high pants, like up to here, and she's like up to his nipples, and so I'm thinking like,
oh my God,
and I'm like overalls, like they go over his shoulders too. She goes, yeah, and like she went into detail about her old parents.
Oh my God, did she grow out of it, or did she?
Yeah, like I've asked her about it recently, and she's like, no, I don't remember that, but she would always say like, I miss my old mommy and daddy. But like she went into detail, like, yeah, the house was really small. There was only one room, and like there was like,
oh my God,
and she's like, there wasn't a floor, so it's like a dirt floor.
I have chills.
I'm like,
chills.
I'm like, well, I'm sorry that you grew up in like rural Missouri, like in your past life, kid. Like, I'm sure it could have been much better, but
yeah, yeah, sorry.
But like it was just so wild, and so. And I got a little freaked out. It's like, I don't know that I really want to know anymore. And like also it's like, okay, do you know like how you died too? Like I didn't want to know any of that. So I just said, okay, well, if you know, you can always miss them, and if you ever want to talk to me about it, you can. But, you know, I'm your mommy now, and like I love you very much, and Daddy loves you very much, and yeah,
I'm gonna go get a bottle of wine.
Yeah,
you play with your
like,
toys.
I need to process this kid. So,
oh my gosh, I can't believe I did not know that.
Yeah.
Does your mom know that?
I think so. I'm
I was
sure
like, if she does, she knows it now.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
But you know what? That I still think that's because you're open to it.
I think so too.
I think people who are close to stuff like that don't. They just shut it down. And the fact that you could have absorbed that and been okay with like, wow.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Okay, that's a great segue into our next one.
Yeah.
Did I miss anything?
I don't think so.
Did we share it all? What about confession or obsession?
Okay. So mine's kind of gross. So I did one of those like Korean foot wrap things.
What are those? What is that?
I don't know. You just like, it's like a foot wrap around. You put
from
it around.
Korea.
Yeah, from Korea. It was like
you did it on Amazon.
Like it was. Yeah. It was, well, no, like $2 at Target. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll try this.
Shit. This is already amazing.
It's gonna burn my foot off, but it's supposed to make them like baby soft. Like I didn't really read a whole lot into it. No, it makes your feet peel.
Oh,
because my heels, like as I'm getting older, they're getting all like gross and like hard and stuff. I'm like, okay, no, I want baby soft feet again.
Well, when you wear cute shoes, that's the price you pay, right?
Yeah. So no, for the past like week, my feet have just been peeling like in chunks, and like that totally grosses me out. But I mean, I can feel the underlayer, and they are baby soft, so they did not false advertise.
You just didn't know the how.
I didn't know the how. So like, I'm gonna go home and have to clean out my shoes because like I want to take them off, but they are so gross.
Oh my god! Yeah. And you look adorable today. You actually got dressed if we were gonna do vid and stuff, and we haven't set that up. That's funny.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Okay, confession or obsession for me. I don't know if I can compete with that. You hear Sasha over there grunting. My obsession that's always normal is that I'm obsessed with Sasha. But I was telling you when we were having a little lunch before we started recording this one, I'm obsessed with Retta.
Oh yeah.
On Instagram. Retta was, and you said it best. She was the original like treat yourself.
Yeah.
And I love Retta to the point where I may like drink wine and actually like private message her and see if there's like a shot in the dark that she'd ever like
slide into her DMs.
Yeah, I want to like she is so like she was in Paris last week for Fashion Week.
Okay.
And her stories every day just like she's like, I'm going to have this dress and I'm going to have this dress, and then they would go drink, and they would drink literally all day, and they would drive by the Eiffel Tower, and then they would like go drink some more.
Treat yourself.
Then they go to another fashion show, and I'm like, I want to hang out with Retta so bad.
Yeah. She sounds like a good time.
And then she gets home. This was like one of my favorite. And she's like, every time I get back from Europe, and this is so true, she's like, I price out how to convert my toilet to a bidet system. She's like, anybody got any leads? I'm like, you know what, girl, get you a bidet.
Yeah.
Like, why not?
Yeah.
But I've seen her.
Go get that Toto toilet.
Oh, I fucking love her. I saw her on Carpool Karaoke.
Uh-huh.
And so when she did her version, she literally had a bus follow them. And so they would be in the car and they would sing. And then they would stop and they would get a pedicure and have wine on the bus. And then they would go back to the car. And so and then after the second time they stopped, she's like, I can't drive anymore, which I thought was awesome.
Yeah.
And so they stayed on the bus and finished their carpool karaoke, which it was her and the other two girls from Good Girls, I think is the show. Okay. Yeah. But she was like, like my dog's on here, or one of the girls brought her dogs on, and it was like a big girl party on a party bus.
I love it.
I love her. And I will look at her stories every day, and I will muster the courage to ask her to be on our podcast.
Do it.
That's how you don't know unless you...
That's true. The worst thing that could happen is they say no.
You got a 50-50 shot, man.
Yeah.
Right? So that's it. All right. That was fun.
Yeah.
We're going to do a pee break, and we're going to
record
3 today.